Gift of Fear by Gavin D. Becker. Now, despite the fact that this book had a lot of fearful stories, there was some powerful content that I am sharing in this written notes and audio notes. So here you go. The thought had occurred to me. I know that what saved Kelly's life can save yours. In her courage, in her commitment to listen to intuition, in her determination to make some sense of it, in her passion to be free of unwanted fear, I saw that the information should be shared not just with victims, but with those who need never become victims at all. I want this book to help you be one of those people because of my sustained look at violence, because I have predicted the behavior of murderers, stalkers, would-be assassins, rejected boyfriends, estranged husbands, angry former employees, mass killers, and others. I am called an expert. I may have learned many lessons, but my basic premise in these pages is that you too are an expert at predicting violent behavior. Like every creature, you can know when you are in the presence of danger. You have the gift of brilliant internal guardian that stands ready to warn you of hazard and guide you through risky situations. Intuition connects us to the natural world and to our nature. Freed from the bonds of judgment, married only to perception, it carries us to predictions we will later marvel at. Somehow I knew, we will say, about the chance meeting we predicted, or about the unexpected phone call from a distant friend, or the unlikely turnaround in someone's behavior, or about the violence we steered clear of, or too often the violence we elected not to steer clear of. Somehow I knew, like Kelly knew, and you can know. The husband and wife who make an appointment with me to discuss the harassing and threatening phone calls they are getting want me to figure out who is doing it. Based on what the caller says, it's obvious he is someone they know, but who? Her ex-husband, that weird guy who used to rent a room from them, a neighbor angry about their construction work, the contractor they fired. The expert will tell them who it is they think, but actually they will tell me. It's true I have experience with thousands of cases, but they have the experience with this one. Inside them, perhaps trapped where I can help find it, is all the information needed to make an accurate evaluation. At some point in our discussion of possible suspects, the woman will invariably say something like, there is one other person, and I don't have any concrete reasons for thinking it's him. I just have this feeling, and I hate to even suggest it, but, and right there, I could send them home and send my bill. The messengers of intuition: nagging feelings, persistent thoughts, humor, wonder, anxiety, curiosity, hunches, gut feelings, doubt, hesitation, suspicion, apprehension, and fear. The elements of prediction. There is a way to evaluate the likelihood of success of any prediction, a way to predict the prediction, so to speak. It can be done by measuring 11 elements. These elements, which I'm offering here as a glimpse into some of the strategy used by my firm, apply to every type of prediction, not just those involving violence. I know how universal they are. For many corporate clients whom we have advised on high-stakes predictions have asked us to assist on other types of predictions, such as what opposing litigants might do. We start by answering the following questions. 1, measurability. How measurable is the outcome you seek to predict? Will it be clear if it happens or does not happen? For example, imagine the predictive question is, will a bomb explode in the auditorium during the pro-choice rally? The outcome is measurable. It would be obvious if it happened. If, however, the predictive question is, will we have a good time on our upcoming trip to Hawaii? We might not have a shared definition of good time. 2, vantage. Is the person making the prediction in a position to observe the pre-incident indicators and context? For example, to predict what will happen between two quarreling people, it is valuable to have a vantage point from which you can see and hear them. Imminence. Are you predicting an outcome that might occur soon as opposed to some remote time in the future? Ideally, one predicts outcomes that might happen while they are still significant. Will someone attempt to harm Senator Smith next week? Is an easier predictive question to answer successfully than will someone attempt to harm Senator Smith in the next 30 years. Success is more likely for the first question because conditions next week will not be affected by as many intervening influences as conditions in 30 years will. For context, is the context of the situation clear to the person making the prediction? Is it possible to evaluate the attendant conditions and circumstances, the relationship of parties and events to each other? 5, pre-incident indicators, also known as PINs. Are there detectable pre-incident indicators that will reliably occur before the outcome being predicted? This is the most valuable of the elements. If one were predicting whether a governor might be the object of an assassination attempt at a speech, pre-incident indicators could include the assassins jumping on stage with a gun, but that is too recent a pin to be very useful. The birth of the assassin is also a pin, but is too dated to be valuable. Even though both of these events are critical intersections on the map of this particular prediction, one hopes to be somewhere between the two, between the earliest possible detectable factor and those that occur an instant before the act. 6, experience. Does the person making the prediction have experience with the specific topic involved? A lion tamer can predict whether or not a lion will attack more accurately than I can because he has experience. He can do an even better job if he has experience with both possible outcomes, lions that do attack and lions that don't. 7, comparable events. Can you study or consider outcomes that are comparable, though not necessarily identical, to the one being predicted? Ideally, one relies on events that are substantively comparable. Predicting whether a senator will be shot by a mentally ill member of the general public, one might study cases in which mayors were shot by deranged pursuers, as this is substantively the same situation and the relationship between the players is similar. Objectivity. Is the person making the prediction objective enough to believe that either outcome is possible? People who believe only one outcome is possible, having already completed their prediction. With the simple decision to make a decision before the full range of predictive tests have been completed, they have hit the wall of their intuitive ability. Asked to predict whether a given employee will act violently, the person who believes that kind of thing never happens is not the right choice for the job. People only apply all their predictive resources when they believe either outcome is possible. 9, investment. To what degree is the person making the prediction invested in the outcome? Simply put, how much does he or she care about avoiding or exploiting the outcome? Does he or she have reason to want the prediction to be correct? If I ask you right now to predict whether I will oversleep tomorrow, you won't bring your best predictive resources to the question because you don't care. If, however, you are relying on me to pick you up at the airport early tomorrow morning, your prediction will be far better. 10, replicability. Is it practical to test the exact issue being predicted by trying it first elsewhere? As to predict if a water in a pot will boil when heated, you need not heat this water to improve the prediction. You can test the issue replicated exactly by heating other water first. It is a low-cost experiment for a low-stakes prediction. While replicability is the cornerstone of the most scientific predictions, it is nearly useless in high-stakes predictions of human behavior. 11, knowledge. Does the person making the prediction have accurate knowledge about the topic? Unless it is relevant and accurate, knowledge can be the sinking ship the fool insists is seaworthy because knowledge often masquerades as wisdom. If a corporate executive has knowledge that most perpetrators of workplace violence are white males between 35 and 50, he might ignore someone's bizarre behavior because the employee does not fit the profile. We all know there are plenty of reasons to fear people from time to time. The question is, what are those times? Far too many people are walking around in a constant state of vigilance, their intuition misinformed about what really poses danger. It needn't be so. When you honor accurate intuitive signals and evaluate them without denial, believing that either the favorable or the unfavorable outcome is possible, you need not be wary, for you will come to trust that you'll be notified if there is something worthy of your attention. Fear will gain credibility because it won't be applied wastefully. When you accept the survival signal as a welcome message and quickly evaluate the environment or situation, fear stops in an instant. Thus, trusting intuition is the exact opposite of living in fear. In fact, the role of fear in your life lessens as your mind and body come to know that you will listen to the quiet wind chime and have no need for claxons. Real Fear is a signal intended to be very brief, a mere servant of intuition. But though few would argue that extended, unanswered fear is destructive, millions choose to stay there. And they may have forgotten or never learned that fear is not an emotion like sadness or happiness, either of which might last a long while. It is not a state like anxiety. True fear is a survival signal that sounds only in the presence of danger, yet unwarranted fear has assumed the power over us that it holds over no other creature on earth. Rule number one, the very fact that you fear something is solid evidence that it is not happening. Fear summons powerful predictive resources that tell us what might come next. It is that which might come next that we fear, what might happen, not what is happening now. An absurdly literal example helps demonstrate this. As you stand near the edge of a high cliff, you might fear getting too close. If you stand right at the edge, you no longer fear getting too close, you now fear falling. Edward Gorey gives us his dark humored but accurate take on the fact that if you do fall, you no longer fear falling, you fear landing. The suicide, as she is falling, illuminated by the moon, regrets her act and finds appalling the thought that she will be dead too soon. Panic, the great enemy of survival, can be perceived as an unimaginable kaleidoscope of fears. It can be reduced through embracing the second rule. Rule number two, what you fear is rarely what you think you fear. It is what you link to fear. Take anything about which you have ever felt profound fear and link it to each of the possible outcomes. When it is real fear, it will either be in the presence of danger or it will link to pain or death. When we get a fear signal, our intuition has already made many connections. To best respond, bring the links into consciousness and follow them to their high stakes destination if they lead there. When we focus on one link only, say fear of someone walking toward us on a dark street, instead of fear of being harmed by someone walking toward us on a dark street, the fear is wasted. That's because many people will approach us, only a few might harm us. Worry is a way to avoid change. When we worry, we don't do anything about the matter. Worry is a way to avoid admitting powerlessness over something, since worry feels like we're doing something. Prayer also makes us feel like we're doing something, and even the most committed agnostic will admit that prayer is more productive than worry. Worry is a cloying way to have connection with others, the idea being that to worry about someone shows love. The other side of this is the belief that not worrying about someone means you don't care about them. As many worried about people will tell you, worry is a poor substitute for love or for taking loving action. Worry is a protection against future disappointment. After taking an important step, for example, a student might worry. The relationship between real fear and worry is analogous to the relationship between pain and suffering. Pain and fear are necessary and valuable components of life. Suffering and worry are destructive and unnecessary components of life. After decades of seeing worry in all its forms, I've concluded that it hurts people much more than it helps. It interrupts clear thinking, wastes time, and shortens life. When worrying, ask yourself, how does this serve me? And you may well find that the cost of worrying is greater than the cost of changing. To be freer of fear and yet still get its gift, there are three goals to strive for. They aren't easy to reach, but it's worth trying. One, when you feel fear, listen. Two, when you don't feel fear, don't manufacture it. Three, if you find yourself creating worry, explore and discover why. Few of us predict that unexpected, undesired events will lead to great things, but very often we'd be more accurate if we did. The history of invention is filled with perceived failures that became unpredicted successes, a la James Watt's failure to get a pump working and his inadvertent success at inventing the vacuum. I have gotten great benefits from taking the voice of skepticism that I used to apply to my intuition, applying it instead to the dreaded outcomes I imagined were coming. Worry will almost always buckle under vigorous interrogation. If you can bring yourself to apply your imagination to finding the possible favorable outcomes of undesired developments, even if only as an exercise, you'll see that it fosters creativity. This suggestion is much more than a way to find the silver lining our grandmothers encouraged us to look for. I include it in this book because creativity is linked to intuition, and intuition is the way out of the most serious challenges you might have. Albert Einstein said that when you follow intuition, the solutions come to you and you don't know how or why. On a personal note, even though I have a professional interest in hazard and risk, I never watch the local TV news, and haven't for years. Try this, and you'll likely find better things to do before going to sleep than looking at 30 minutes of disturbing images presented with artificial urgency and the usually false implication that it's critical for you to see it. Having spent years preparing for the worst, I've finally arrived at this wisdom. Though the world is a dangerous place, it is also a safe place. You and I have survived some extraordinary risks, particularly given that every day we move in, around, and through powerful machines that could kill us without missing a cylinder. Jet airplanes, subways, buses, escalators, elevators, motorcycles, cars, conveyances that carry a few of us to injury, but most of us to the destinations we have in mind. We are surrounded by toxic chemicals, and our homes are hooked up to explosive gases and lethal currents of electricity.